on the grand and glorious, what should we call that, spectrum of philosophy, you've got the crusty professor on the one hand, and you've got something much more funky at the other end. And it may come as no surprise at this point that tonight we shall err towards the funky. Okay. Now, at the funky end of philosophy, philosophy is not, it's not just something that you think about. It's not something that you read about. Philosophy is something that you do. It's an activity. And it's an activity best performed with other people. Handy, right? And also at the funky end, let's see, we are entering into the realm of what we might call non-ordinary thinking. And in order to grease the wheels of non-ordinary thinking, it is frequently useful, I find, to do some non-ordinary doing. So, did I mention that there was an element of participation?
Just now.
Really? I didn't mention it before that. Because, you know, seasoned networking folks such as yourself must be used to this kind of thing. Now, sometimes this can be a little bit cloying. I'm aware of that. I work quite hard not to let that happen. But in order to do some non-ordinary thinking, we need to do something that will shift the framework of where we are. So, this is an activity called pointing at stuff and saying what it is. This is a deceptively simple activity, which consists of pointing at stuff and saying what it is, which looks like this. So, at the given signal, I'd like you all to move around in the space available, point at stuff with verve and tenacity, and really nail it. So that is the alarm thing for the fire extinguisher, and there's a light, and that's the carpet, and that's the giant screen over there, and that is the window. Pointing at stuff and saying what it is. Is that clear? Yes. Please have a go at that now. Okay, thank you very much. Now that was quite a spirited first go at pointing at stuff and saying what it is. Some people, when you do that, they just kind of wander around and do that. But you ranged far and wide. This augurs well for the future. There's a phase 2 to this experiment, and this one is called pointing at stuff and saying the last thing that you pointed at. So that would go like this: carpet, ceiling, light, screen, window, and so on. Does that make sense? So you're pointing at stuff and saying the last thing that you pointed at. This is a little bit trickier, so I'll get you started. If everybody could point at the floor and say nothing, and then point at the ceiling and say floor. Off you go. Stuck already. Okay, thank you very much. Now I have to say that one was a little bit more subdued. It's not quite so enthusiastic, that one. There is a phase 3 to this activity, and phase 3 is called pointing at stuff and saying what it is not. So with this one, you point at stuff and you can say absolutely anything at all except the thing that it is. So that would be like a tractor and an elephant maybe, and there's Scooby-Doo over there for some reason. So this is pointing at stuff and saying what it's not. Really, really point at stuff, though, and say what it's not. Have a go at that. Off you go.
Just before you said tractor, I thought tractor.
No. That's not part of the act. Okay, thank you very much. If we could close ranks again a little bit. So, let me see. Oh no, close in a little bit. You've taken liberties now. A little bit further. Okay. So who thought that the last one was mysteriously slightly harder than they thought it might be? Yeah? It's a funny thing, that last one. I think it puts your brain in an unusual state because we live in an environment which is saturated with the idea of right and wrong, where we're surrounded by questions and the expectation that there's a right answer to that question. And if you get the answer right, then you're smart, and if you get the answer wrong, then you're thick. This is something that kind of follows us through most of our lives. And it sets up some frameworks and barriers. That last situation, you're setting up a situation where there are an unlimited number of right answers. And your brain kind of goes, wait a minute, what, am I allowed to say anything? But surely, what's the right answer? What's the right answer? I do that exercise with quite a lot of groups, and I do it with little kids sometimes. Little kids have no trouble at all doing that last bit. And as they get older, harder it gets. And they thought. So, I suppose the point of all that was, philosophy is a little bit like this. I sometimes think philosophy is a little bit like this, because philosophy is about questions that don't have one single, simple